You probably heard what President Bush told reporters in Texas this week about intelligent design. I'm quoting here. The president said, "I think that part of education is to expose people to different schools of thought." You're asking me whether or not people ought to be exposed to different ideas. The answer is yes. And that has sparked a teaching controversy. Should evolution and intelligent design be taught side by side? Joining us from Washington to debate this is Edward Sisson, partner of the law firm of Arnold and Porter, and Rob Boston, Assistant Communications Director for the Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I had a whole list of my own questions prepared, but we got so many emails on this topic, I'm just going to ask what our viewers are wondering about. So, this is from Dan. He says, it's simple. It's simple, really. Creationism should be taught in public schools when evolution is taught in church. And, you know, I'm wondering something, Edward, because a lot of people know that intelligent design is really creationism. So why call it intelligent design? Why not call it what it is?
Well, it's not creationism. That is the spin that's always put on it. But the focus here is on the data, specifically, or most interestingly, data revealed by the analysis of how cells operate and how DNA is structured, that demonstrates such complexity and such specificity of function and performance that it really is not credible to say that every single feature that we see there happened solely by natural, random processes or natural selection. Some of these elements must have required some kind of intelligent intervention, and that is all that we are saying.
Well, who was the intelligent designer?
Well, we don't, science, the data that we see doesn't tell us that. And so all we can say is that we have identified that there must have been, at some points, an intelligent intervention.
Rob, let's go to you now so you can respond to this.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that intelligent design is merely dressed-up creationism under a new name. Over the years, since the Supreme Court struck down the teaching of creationism in public schools, proponents of that idea have renamed it and tried to recast it in a different light. In this case, they simply have jettisoned some of the more outlandish proposals of creationism, trying to secularize it and say, oh, it's different now, it's okay to teach it in schools. What does the science say? Well, you know, 99.9% of all scientists reject intelligent design, and I think we have to go with what the scientific community looks at and take this question away from the political system and really get it back into the scientific community.
Well, let me throw this at you, Rob, because we had some polls on earlier, and most people think it's okay to teach creationism alongside evolution within the schools. In fact, this is from Bree. She's a teacher in Rochester, New York. She says schools should be allowed to teach both religion and science, but children should be taught about all religions. What's wrong with that?
I think an objective study of the religions of the world would be fine in public schools from a standpoint of education, not indoctrination. But when we get into these alleged scientific theories of origins that they really are just religion masquerading as science, we have to be very careful because not all religious believers accept those ideas, and sometimes they're really just theology disguised as science.
Well, Edward, what would be so wrong with teaching intelligent design in a religious course within high schools? Why must it be taught in a science class?
Because the basis for it is found in science. It's found in an understanding of how...
According to who, though?
What?
According to who? What scientists?
Well, I was out at the Kansas hearings as co-counsel. We had 17 science PhDs who testified, including 10 university science professors. My role initially was to cross-examine scientists who would come on and rebut them, but those scientists boycotted, so I wasn't able to pose the questions I had planned that focus on such books as Molecular Biology of the Cell, authored or co-authored by Bruce Alberts, the former head of the National Academy of Sciences. There are very serious scientific questions here, and there are scientists, professors in universities who acknowledge these, who recognize them, who would like to teach them. I have a client, Caroline Crocker, of my law firm, Arnold and Porter, from George Mason University.
On trial, or the germ theory of disease. And mainstream scientists rightly decided they weren't going to participate in a farce like that, that it was ridiculous, that it was done for show purposes, to get a big splash in the media, and they weren't going to dignify that by taking part, and I think they made the right decision. Again, we have to look at what the consensus is. You know, there may be rogue scientists out there who have backed this idea, but the 99.9% are on the side of Darwinian evolution, and when you have an overwhelming consensus like that, it's up to the people who disagree with that to make their case in the scientific community, and they haven't done that. Instead, they've gone to the media, they've turned to the political system to give them credibility that the scientific community has denied them.
Let's talk about politics, because the president came out and said, you know, maybe this should be taught in schools. Maybe everything should be presented to our children. Because the president said this, Edward, because I know you have several lawsuits filed across the country, do you think this will help you in your fight?
Well, first, I would like to congratulate President Bush because he did exactly the right thing. Second, just to clarify, my firm personally does not have several lawsuits filed, but certainly there are various pending lawsuits. I think that it will help because it helps to establish that this is a credible concern, that there are credible doubts about the proposition that natural selection alone could have produced the great diversity of species and living creatures that we see.
So, Rob, your thoughts on that, and then we have to go.
Well, I think it's completely irrelevant what Bush said from a scientific perspective. All that proves is that he wasn't paying attention during freshman biology classes at Yale University, and he should have been.
Edward Sisson, Rob Boston, thanks to you both for joining Daybreak this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.